I want to talk a little bit about patterns and pivots. Hi, I'm Veronica Lee. This is your weekly transformational forecast for the week of June 27th, 2022. So this week, and it's been coming up, this is what we've been moving through collectively. We're sort of looking at a lot of our patterns. And when we look at those patterns, we often tend to, from the ego's perspective, see the patterns that aren't serving us, or the patterns where we can blame ourselves or feel bad about ourselves, right? It's sort of like the feeling or the belief that, oh, I always, procrastinate, or I'm not very good at da 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 da, or whatever that is that feels like it's looming, and that it maybe has been looming for a while, and it's an area where you can get caught up and choose to feel bad about yourself because of that area. When you look at patterns, it's important to look at larger patterns and more from a place of, well, what have you done? So in other words, rather than looking at it from a negative, like I never do this, or maybe it's the opposite in terms of a negative, I always do this, I always react this way, whatever the story is. If you start to look at the larger picture, stand back a little bit more and say, oh, interesting. Yes, I always seem to fail, but I always try, and I try again, and I try again. So I want you to look at that courage it takes to show up and try again, right? The other place that it might feel like there's a pattern happening, it's not just in how you do things or how you react, but also the patterns that are trying to, let's say, direct you. And this is the part I want to talk about in terms of pivot. So if the example is you are trying to learn how to be more conscious about money, and you unconsciously, spend over here or do a little bit of this over there, and you're just sort of wanting to ignore it, maybe the pivot would be to say, okay, I'm going to have, a credit card, right? And I'm not going to put anything on it except those places where I'm just spending, that I don't need to spend, so that you can take a look at what it is you're actually doing, not what you think you're doing, but what you actually are doing. The other place might be if you're looking at relationships and you are regularly attracting a certain kind of person that isn't working for you, somebody who you're attracted to, but they're not responsive, or maybe they have a certain habit that just doesn't look, like they would really meet your needs, right? So for example, a lot of people are attracted to unavailable, I'll say this from a woman's perspective, a lot of women will be in a habit or in a pattern of attracting in man who isn't emotionally available to them. Okay, so that's just looking at it from a male-female relationship place that I often deal with in my clients. So you can look at it from any perspective. It could even be about a job that you might repeatedly find yourself not being appreciated, right? Or even relationships that are outside of a romantic one. So when we look at these patterns that aren't serving us and we're repeating them, rather than stepping back and say, hey, well, at least I keep getting into relationships. Yeah, you could do that. But you can also start to use that as an awareness, not to beat yourself up with, but instead to say, okay, what is it that I need to pivot within? What needs to be changed within? I also want to be clear, these changes are going to be action oriented. Obviously, that's part of this movement or pivoting, right? That's a physical thing we do, let's say. But it's really going to be an inner pivot. What is it that the universe has been trying to teach me? What is it that I need to become aware of so that I can start to shift that dynamic inwardly? I can heal whatever's going on that's keeping me looping in the same areas. So energetically, this is what's going on for us. We are, probably hitting the same pattern over and over and over again a lot right now because it's asking us to take a look and either commend ourselves for saying it's not as bad as you think it is, or yeah, you are kind of trapped, so why not pivot, right? Why not shift and do the inner healing, clear up the patterns inwardly that keep attracting the things that aren't serving you? I hope that makes sense. The other last piece I want to say to this, along with all of the energies that are coming in to kind of push up against us, to ask us to make those shifts, is that the key is to be as clear and open with ourselves and our heart as possible. So what that means specifically is if we can do these, observations of our patterns and make those pivots with compassion, with awareness, and with gentleness of heart, it makes it much easier to move through it, because then our part of us that already feels attacked doesn't start to shrink down and say, oh, I can't do anything right. But instead, if it's very compassionately, brought through this change, it will make it much easier. And then the other piece would be, and if you get a professional or somebody, you trust, who's good at what they do, whether it be a group, let's say it's, going to Al-Anon, let's say it's working with a coach, let's say it's working with a spiritual teacher, whatever it is that kind of can carry you compassionately and support you with specific ways to help pivot, that makes it even easier. So with that, I will see you next week. And if it is June 27th, so in a few hours at 6 p.m. California time, I will be doing my free monthly class. It's called Rise, 12 Key Elements to really align with who you are here to be. And I share something different each month. And tonight is about implementing your intuition. So if that interests you, or if there's anything else you want to check out, always go to my website at veronicalee.tv. See you then.